Good night, Sir Michael East. How are you doing? It is my greatest pleasure to be here, as it is always my pleasure to be here. And I have come tonight to support my good friend, Trevor Prescott. And in many ways, Trevor is more than a friend to me. Trevor has been a mentor to me. But before I begin, I want to thank my friends from St. Michael's South, of course, who journeyed to be here with me. Thank you very much. And the good people of St. Michael's South, who have given me their support in 2 elections, and I trust they will give me their support in a 3rd. That's right. This election is one of the most important elections of our time. And we need, in our parliament, people with the intellectual capacity and people with the support for the grassroots and people who are as honest as Trevor Prescott is. And talk what you want about Trevor Prescott. Trevor Prescott is an honest man. And Trevor is a good man. And many of you may not know, or some may know, that I too was born in this constituency. I know my people there, they know. They know me as a pine man. But I was born in my Lordsill. And Lake Crush Village to be exact, Cinti, how you? And I was raised by a mother who had 8 children. I was number 7. And so I came into the world in struggle like many of us did, like Trevor Prescott did. And that story of struggle shaped my life in the same way that it shaped Trevor's life. And I say to Trevor oftentimes, as I say to you, that we are different chapters in the very same book, because our lives, in a way, are identical. And when I had the opportunity to go to Parliament, I said to myself that I could go and support the ideologies of Trevor Prescott. And there are many days when I'm speaking in Parliament and I look across at Trevor for a nod of approval or disapproval, depending on what it is that I am saying, because Trevor sets the course. And Trevor stayed the course. And I commit Trevor Prescott to you as the better candidate for this constituency by far. And in fact, compared to Trevor, where there's really no competition. And I say to the people of St. Michael East, on February 11th, give Trevor Prescott your vote. I say to the people of St. Michael East, give Trevor Prescott a mandate that says to all of us that the people of St. Michael East are as loyal to Trevor Prescott as Trevor Prescott has been to them. And I say to you that Trevor Prescott has been very, very loyal to you. You may not hear the conversations in the boardroom. You may not have heard the conversations in the cabinet. You may not hear the say talk in Parliament. But every time Prescott speaks, it is about the people in this constituency. That is true. And I too may have had a reason to be upset with Trevor. You see these lights on this pastor here? One day we were on a tour. And those lights that are on the pastor were dedicated to St. Michael's South. And we were on a tour of this constituency. And the Prime Minister was on that tour. And Trevor Prescott made such a powerful argument that although I had already set the basis for my lights, the Prime Minister took the lights from me and gave them to Trevor Prescott to give to the people of St. Michael East. That is true. But when you are a man's brother, as Trevor Prescott is my brother, and I am his brother, then you are never in competition. It is all about cooperation. And I know that Trevor Prescott has been asking for those lights and for developments in St. Michael East for so long. It was my privilege to surrender them to Trevor. I'm happy to have lights now to myself, I must say, so that I too could have some football on the bay pasture, so that men like Ranties could come and do a thing. So I say to you that there is really no competition, and that Trevor Prescott is a mentor to me. I do not just say that. When I was first in the public service, I was manager of the Child Care Board. And at the time, Trevor Prescott was a consultant in the Ministry of Social Transformation. Hamilton Lashley, who was also a mentor and in fact a very, very close friend, was Minister of Social Transformation. And I would have had the opportunity on evenings after work to sit at the feet of Hamilton Lashley and Trevor Prescott. And I say to you, you may not know the value of having been mentored by Trevor Prescott and Hamilton Lashley at the same time. But I have had that privilege to learn from two of the greatest Barbadian men perhaps of all times. And all that I have achieved, I credit to both of those men for the time that they took to help shape me and to help mold me. When I say to you that Trevor Prescott was a mentor, I mean it. And Trevor helped me as a young manager at the Child Care Board. When Trevor became the Minister of Social Transformation, under his leadership, I became the Director of Social Policy. We go back. I'm talking about 2002. I am older than I look. I'm talking about 2002. And we then started a process of deliverance for the people of this country. But as you all know, we lost the government in 2008. And so we did not get to finish. So I say to my brother that I had the opportunity to finish the work that Hamilton Lashley started and that Trevor Prescott started. So the few things that I say to you tonight that history will probably record as achievements of Kirk Humphrey and the Labour Party, we must credit also to Hamilton Lashley, to Trevor Prescott, to Owen Arthur, and of course to Mia Motley. This government, this Barbados Labour Party government, when we came into office, and I will take some time tonight because I feel that tonight is a teaching moment. And that if you do not understand this, then perhaps we will make a bad decision on February 11th. The Democratic Labour Party has a history of saying this country is more than an economy, it is a society. And how much they love poor people. And I believe that they love poor people so much that it is the intention of the DLP to keep everybody poor. To do nothing to advance the interests of the vulnerable classes in this country. When we came to office in 2018, 10 years later, we picked up the work that we had left because I say to you in the social space, nothing was done. Well, not much. The first thing that we determined we had to do was a child protection bill. And let me explain to you why that is important. This country was using legislation from 1904 to deal with the children of Barbados. In 1904, children that were your complexion and mine were hardly recognized as human. There is no way that legislation from 1904 can be applicable to the realities of a modern Barbados. And while we had started that work under Trevor Prescott, we didn't get to finish. You ask yourself what the Democratic Labour Party did between 2008 and 2018 in relation to advancing the interests of children. And I came in and I picked up that work. And we were able to do a piece of legislation, the most transformative legislation that will protect your children. What does it say? The first thing that legislation says, and Trevor will be very happy because he was one of the architects of it. Many little girls that you see wandering, or they used to use the term wandering, who would leave home, could be picked up and placed in an institution, a criminal institution, under the old laws of Barbados. And it said that those young girls, many of whom were running away from circumstances of abuse, ill treatment and maltreatment, would get a criminal record being placed in an institution. And under this Labour Party, we said wandering cannot be part of our legislation. Instead of locking them up, we need to help them. And this legislation has sought to help those young girls instead of criminalizing them. This legislation also says that if you see abuse as a doctor, as a teacher, good night, Deputy Prime Minister Santia. Please welcome the Deputy Prime Minister. But this legislation also says if you see it, you must report it. If you carry your phone to the repairman and he sees that somebody on that phone is doing something inappropriate with a child by law, he has to report it. We have gone to great lengths to protect children in this country. Do not let the Democratic Labour Party fool you. That legislation will go down as perhaps the most important piece of legislation for children in the history of this country. But what did the Dems do? The Dems deemed it inappropriate and decided that they had to go and march against the legislation. And they said things like we were taking the legislation to perform sex changes on children. Nonsense. That we want to make little boys girls and little girls boys. And that we could not perform any operation on a child, any medical intervention. Have you ever seen a child that had been raped? And I want to talk to you in plain terms, because the DLP is doing things that will take this country to the pits. I have in my constituency a child. When I met her, she was about 6. And she carries a scar from the top of her little body part, you know what I mean, all the way up through her chest, because her father saw her as a sexual being. And if you brought her into care under the stupidity of the DLP, you took her away from that father, you could not carry her to the doctor, you could not get a medical intervention for her, because they're saying we can't perform these operations. You can't have medical interventions. The stupidity of it was such that to gain support, they would damage your children, hear me. So they marched all through town, up and down. With the 10 of them, because they didn't really have nobody. But they marched through town. We called a select committee and we said, come and bring your issues so we can address them. And after they put little children on social media, and they did ads with little children, oh, don't support this bill, it will turn you into a boy if you're a girl. When they had the opportunity to defend their sides and their thoughts, none of that was in their submission because they knew it was nonsense. But they believe that Barbadians are so foolish that they can say anything at all to get a vote. And that you would discard the interests of your children to support a Democratic Labour Party because they believe that the Barbados that they knew is still the same Barbados, that 95% of this country belongs to the Dems. The other bill that we brought, another piece of important legislation, you count them, that's one. I will go through the other 2 or 3 quicker. The other bill that we brought was the disabilities legislation. And that legislation is critical because people with disabilities were not seen, heard, or felt in this country. And every time we had an opportunity to speak to the community, they told us that. What did we go about doing? Under the leadership of Mayor Motley, we said this cannot continue. And the Prime Minister established a commission chaired by Edmund Hinkson. And I am telling you, y'all may not know what Eddie Hinkson did, but please give Edmund Hinkson a round of applause. That man worked like no man has worked. And produced for us a policy, a sound policy forward for what we can do to improve the lives of persons with disabilities. And quickly thereafter, we had at the Parliament legislation to protect persons with disabilities. And the disabled community has said to us time and time again, in fact, just the other day last week, the Prime Minister and I were together, and a person with a disability said to us, I want to thank you because no one in this country, no government in this country has done for us what this government has done for us. And here are the other things in relation to disabilities that we did because the Democratic Labour Party is talking, but talk is cheap. They're talking, but talk is cheap. Words without works mean nothing. We then determined that there are persons in this country with disabilities, because of their disability, they can get access to no income. I want you to understand what your government is doing for you. There will be another night to deal with Ralph Torn. But tonight, I want to talk to you about your government. When we came in, we said, no, this cannot continue. Because people who have children and people with certain disabilities do not have the ability to earn. They can't work. And we determined that that cannot continue. And in the first year, we said, if you have multiple sclerosis, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, or autism, you will be you'll be allowed to access a grant. And after consultation, we said, well, there are other children and other adults who have other disabilities that prevent them from functioning. They went back to the Prime Minister with Eddie. And the Prime Minister said, if you believe it is so, then bring something for me to see and I will support it. And true to her word, I thank the good Lord every day for the Prime Minister that we have. Because no other Prime Minister has put the resources to the social services like Mia Motley has. And in that first year, we gave 909 persons with disabilities who hitherto had nothing at all over access to $12 million, this government. Children got half and adults got more. And then we said, any disability at all, I want you to understand this. If you have a disability that prevents you from functioning, you can access these resources. There is hardly a week in this country, I won't say a day because I don't want to lie, but there's hardly a week in this country that I go anywhere and someone doesn't say to me, I want to thank you for that disability grant. You don't know what difference it made to my child or to my household. This government. This government is also building facilities for the first time for persons with disabilities. We already started it. Because I would want to say this is talk. We already started it at Sterling. We're going to continue it in St. George. And we're going to continue it in St. Thomas. And we're going to try and do a little something in St. Michael South, but the land's scarce. But we're going to carry it all over Barbados. So that people who have disabilities and older persons have rights and some place to go. Thirdly, that's two. The Elder Persons Bill, we call it the Rights of Older Persons Bill. That bill allows people, and I want you to know this country is getting old, Timber. Just know. The average person in Barbados is about 47 years old. Hear me. A healthy society, the average age should be around 25. The average age in Barbados is 47, 46. That means that Barbados is an old society. Barbados is approaching what is soon called a super-aged society. A super-aged society is where 21% of your population is over the age of 65. We are 20-point-something. If we do not do something soon, we will have more old people or older people and very few younger persons to take care of the older persons. You understand what I'm saying? We have to build out facilities to help take care of these older persons. We have come to appreciate that a lot of things we thought were cruel, I did. When I was young, you would hear a man tie his mother to the bed and went to work. Because people didn't understand dementia. And people didn't understand Alzheimer's. We got now to understand that people were not doing that to be cruel. People were doing that to be kind. Because they did not have the facilities to put them in. We now have to build out facilities so that the older persons can be treated with the dignity that they have. And that is what we are doing. And I want to spend, I don't know how much more time I have. I want to spend 2 minutes, 5 minutes, okay. I want to spend a little time on the Social Empowerment Agency. Because this has now become the talking point of the Dems. Last night I said, and I want to repeat it. Last night I said when I met with David Thompson was Prime Minister. And the first time that I entered, not the first time I went into Parliament, but the first time I entered the little room that I have come to appreciate now is the Prime Minister's room, was when David Thompson sent for me in 2009. And David Thompson said to me, you are the head of social policy. Chris Sinclair could verify it because he's who told me the Prime Minister wanted to see me. I must tell you that when I hear the man who wants to see me, I tell myself I fired. Because everybody knew it was a B. But David Thompson understands that you got to use the talent that you have to get the things done that you need to do. But if you go around firing people just because you hear they got different colors, the country won't get very far. Michael Lashley, welcome to the Barbados Labour Party. You use the talent that is there to achieve the outcome that you need to achieve. But when I went to that little room, We had a conversation around social services in Barbados. David Thompson, I know you're looking down on me, and you know I'm telling no lies. And at that time, we were talking mostly about the constituency councils. And he gave me his vision for the councils. And I was transferred to be head. But we had a conversation around what does Barbados need. And he was pushing this family first agenda. And we both agreed that what Barbados needed was an agency, a system that allowed one person to go one place and get all of the services David Thompson did. Because that was the vision of the Labour Party. One person, so that if you live here in the Ivy, you don't have to go, as you do now, to Culloden Road, or Column Rock to the Disabilities Unit. You don't have to go to Country Road to the older person's place, Cheapside for children. You go one place and get all of the services. You walk in, if your mother needs help, she gets it there. If your child has a disability, help there. But do you know the Dems are also criticizing that? And it makes so much sense because some people criticize for criticizing's sake. In all fairness to Ralph, he did not. So that agency would allow you to go to one place and get all of the services. Instead of this fragmented, I go here, I go there, and be pushed around, 20 different people dealing with your file, it makes you feel less than human. We want to fix that. That is what the Social Empowerment Agency does. You're provided all the services. Furthermore, the officers are determined to go into the communities and help people. Because Mia said, the Prime Minister said, social workers must see themselves as first responders. I agree. And that is what we are seeking to change. And what difference will that make to poor people? It makes all the difference in the world. I understand my roots. And my roots drive me with a responsibility. I have not been so long away from poverty that I forgot. My family still live here. When I was at community college, I used to still come out here every day and get lunch by Laddie. Well, Laddie and my sister the dealing. It's a fact. And people would see me going by Laddie and assume all kind of things. I used to go by Laddie to eat because I had some days I ain't had no lunch. And I would go by my sister who was there and I would eat. That is true. And so I understand it. And I have no intention, like Trevor Prescott has no intention of making it somehow a little bit above my own circumstances and pushing down the ladder. That is a DLP thing. So I would come sometimes and I would have lunch. And I understand the realities of the struggle. I have never forgotten it. So I have said to my social workers, I don't care how much degrees you got. I don't care how much experience you have. If you do not treat poor people well, you are in the wrong job. If you don't know how to treat poor people, you're in the wrong job. My mother, when I was living in the housing schemes in the point, my family's still there. My family's still down there in my Lord Hill. When the social worker came to my mother, who was a conductress and had lost her job. When she came about 3 years, because the money does run out. If money ain't coming in, money does run out. The social worker said to my mother, but how you got a VCR? That ain't VCR is the thing. How you got a VCR? How you got a TV? How you got this nice whatnot? That's what you call it, a whatnot. You got all these ornaments. You can't want no help. But my mother had been unemployed for about 4 years. And we were struggling. That cannot be the reality of this new agency. So I say to you that we are reforming social services for you. It is for that reason that we increase welfare by 40% for everybody. It is for that reason that we went through the processes to make it faster. My friends, this is not a time to change course. This is not a time to question the government that has been doing for you what other governments has not done. You may question them because we are pleased to consult, but do not change this government. There is still a lot of work to do. We have seen that in 10 years, a country can be set back 30 years by an uncaring government like the last Democratic Labour Party government was. So I ask you in this constituency to do one thing, not two. I simply ask you to give one of the greatest men I know, Trevor Prescott, your vote on February 11th. I ask you to get up early and go to the polls and support Trevor Prescott. I ask you to allow Trevor Prescott to stay to mentor the younger ones, because Trevor is the mentor of the parliament. And all of us have a tremendous amount of respect for Trevor. And it is often the case that we don't respect. They say a prophet is never recognized in his own hometown. You do not know how much I love Trevor Prescott, how much Dwight loves Trevor Prescott, Marshall loves Trevor Prescott, Santia loves Trevor Prescott, and the Prime Minister loves Trevor Prescott because of what he brings to the conversation. So St. Michael East, one day perhaps we can have a conversation a little longer. But I thank you for allowing me to come home, because St. Michael East is home. And I thank you for allowing me to thank my brother publicly, because Trevor Prescott has been good to me, he's been good to you, and he has been good to this country. So vote Trevor Prescott February 11th. Stay with the Barbados Labour Party. Bajan strong, all the way, red and ready. Good night and God bless.